There is a sheet cake in the break room with your name spelled slightly wrong. Coworkers chipped in $4 each for the card. They think you are retiring early because of a pension, maybe an inheritance. Not one person holding a paper plate knows the man in the old cardigan is a millionaire. Rewind 30 years. You are 22, holding an offer letter for a job title nobody has ever dreamed about. Operations coordinator. $38,000 a year. Your friends are chasing careers with better stories. You take the desk by the copier and, without knowing it, the strangest road to $1 million there is. Your first paycheck taught the only lesson that ever mattered. Split it before you feel it. A slice moved somewhere untouchable the same morning it landed. What remained became your whole life, and your life quietly agreed to fit. You never once managed money. You managed the first 5 minutes of payday. Understand the job itself. Spreadsheets, schedules, supply orders. Work that vanished if done well and got noticed only when it broke. No stage, no glory, no stock options. The kind of role career advice tells you to escape. Hold that thought, because this exact dullness is the engine of the entire story. At 25, a form from Human Resources sat on your desk for a week. Retirement plan enrollment. 1 checkbox, 6%, and a company match. You ticked it mostly to stop the reminders. That bored little tick, worth nothing that afternoon, would eventually out-earn every promotion you ever received. Through your 20s, you lived like a student who happened to have a salary. A roommate, a bus pass, furniture with history. Friends leveled up apartments the way they leveled up phones. You stayed put. Not from virtue. The cheap years simply never hurt enough to fix, so you banked the difference. Every raise got the same treatment. You met the new number once, shook its hand, and sent most of it to join the savings before your lifestyle learned its name. 2% here, 3% there. Colleagues upgraded cars on rumor of a raise. Yours were invested before the paperwork cleared. At 27, you almost broke. A red coupe in a showroom window, monthly payment engineered to sound harmless. You sat in it. You smelled the leather. Then you did the one sum the salesman never offers, the 10-year cost, and drove home in a used sedan you would keep for ages. A coworker named the brown bag before anyone else did. Same sandwich again, big spender? The room chuckled. You chuckled too, and did the quiet math under the laughter. His daily takeout, multiplied by 30 years, was a house. Your sandwich, invested, was the house. Nobody at that table was joking. By 30, the whole plan ran without your permission. An automatic transfer left on payday, invisible as rent. You treated your future like a landlord who would not negotiate. Motivation never entered it. Willpower is weather. The transfer was climate, and climate is what a fortune is actually made of. Here is the decade the movies would cut. 28 to 38. Nothing happened. You worked, transferred, walked the same block at lunch. The balance climbed too slowly to feel and too steadily to stop. Every fortune has a chapter like this, and almost everyone quits inside it, because it reads like failure. At 33, the market fell off a cliff, and your account lost a third of its weight in a season. Coworkers sold everything at the bottom, swearing off the whole idea. You read 1 page of history, closed the laptop, and let the transfer run. Buying through that winter built more than the 10 calm years around it. A director path opened at 40. More money, more meetings, more midnight phone calls. You did the honest accounting, hours against dollars, stomach against title. The role you had, you could do well with a calm pulse. You stayed. Ambition is a fine tool. It was simply never the tool this plan required. Twice a decade, some side venture swept the office. Vending machines, flipping condos, a cousin's franchise. You listened politely and joined none of them. Not because they never worked, because your plan needed only 2 ingredients, time and consistency, and every scheme demanded the exact hours that kept you consistent. People pity the predictable job, and they are measuring the wrong thing. Predictable meant the plan compounded uninterrupted for 3 decades. No gaps, no gambles, no burnout years of zero. The dull salary was a metronome, and wealth, it turns out, is far more rhythm than it is genius. You married someone who found the plan romantic in her own way. Not the numbers, the calm. 2 salaries, 1 modest life, 0 performances for anyone. Couples wreck money with competing dreams. Yours happened to rhyme, and that rhyme was worth more than any raise either of you ever brought home. The bank approved a number that flattered you. You bought a house worth half of it. Smaller rooms, shorter street, payments that never once owned your sleep. Neighbors called it a starter home for 20 years. It started nothing. It quietly finished everything. 15 years early, mortgage burned in the backyard. The first 6-figure balance arrived on an ordinary Wednesday. No confetti fell in the kitchen. You noticed it the way you noticed the odometer roll over. One glance, one small hum, back to the dishes. Milestones in this story never announced themselves. They slipped past like mile markers in fog. Around 42, the neighborhood entered its acquisition years. A boat appeared across the street, then a camper, then a second boat to keep the first one company. Your driveway held the same aging sedan. You watched the fleet grow with genuine admiration and absolutely no envy. Both feelings were real. 30 years of the same commute gave you something strange. A private observatory. Same road, same faces at the bus stop, same seasons repainting the same trees. Ambition calls that a rut. You experienced it as a long, quiet laboratory where a very slow experiment was running, and you were the result. At 45 on a Tuesday night, the spreadsheet crossed 7 digits. You checked it twice, then a third time with fresh coffee. 1 million, and the house already paid beneath your feet. You told your wife with a look. She looked back. The dishwasher finished its cycle. That was the parade. The Monday after the million, you packed the same lunch. Not from fear, from fit. The habits were never a rope you climbed and then dropped. They were the shape of you by then. A million did not upgrade your appetite. It only confirmed the appetite had been right the whole time. Ask the office about you and they would reach for kind, flat words. Reliable, steady, a little gray. The hotshots got the wow and the corner glances. You got forgotten by every gossip cycle, which suited the balance sheet perfectly. Camouflage, you learned, is a rate of return nobody calculates. The office legend earned triple your salary through the good years. Commissions, bonuses, a lease that turned heads in the parking garage. At 50, he was starting over, savings thin as his patience. Income, you understood then, is a story people tell. Keeping it is a story almost nobody does. At 48, the company gathered everyone into the cafeteria and used the word restructuring. Around you, careers wobbled on single incomes and long leases. Your pulse stayed level, and you noticed it staying level. The money had never bought a single thrilling thing. It had bought this. A calm heartbeat in a shaking room. You kept the job 4 more years, and they were the sweetest of the run. Work chosen daily is different weather from work required. You mentored the new hires, took the vacation days that used to expire, said no to nonsense with a gentleness that confused management. Freedom had already arrived. It was just wearing your old badge. One evening you opened the calendar and circled a Tuesday in June, 18 months out. No fireworks date, no round number birthday. Just the day the last projections cleared, with room to spare. Circling it felt bigger than the million had. Numbers grow quietly. A date you can touch makes them real. Your boss assumed a rival company had poached you and offered to match the imaginary offer. You said there was no offer, just done, in the fullest sense of the word. He stared at the gray man by the copier as if meeting him for the first time. In a way, he was. 30 years fit into one cardboard box. A mug, a desk plant, a drawer of birthday cards, the metronome a coworker never asked about. Walking out, the box felt lighter than it should have. Most of what you built there was never in the building. It had been leaving with you every payday. The first Monday, you woke at the usual hour anyway, to a silence where the alarm used to stand. You lay there listening to the house tick, cataloging the strange new species of time. Then you got up and made coffee slowly, on purpose, because slowly was suddenly a thing you owned. Now the part everyone waits for, and the part that disappoints every treasure hunter. The math. A steady slice of every paycheck, roughly a sixth. Plain index funds, never traded on a feeling. The company match, always taken.
3 decades of ordinary market returns. That is the entire vault. There was never a secret in it. Pay the honest bill before admiring the result. There were trips postponed into non-existence, restaurants walked past for decades, a wardrobe that never once impressed a stranger. The plan cost real pleasure, taken from a real life, and pretending otherwise would sell you a fantasy. It simply cost less than the alternative costs most people. Here is what the pity misses. The quiet life mostly fit the man. You liked long walks more than lounges, the library more than the mall, 10 friends more than 100 acquaintances. Frugality bent your life perhaps 10 degrees, not 90. Misers suffer for money. You just decline to suffer for appearances. So flip the whole premise on its head. The boring job was never the obstacle between you and wealth. It was the instrument of it. 30 years of unbroken salary is a printing press for a patient man. The dreamers kept quitting engines to chase rockets. You just never switched off the engine. The secrecy was never shame, it was insulation. Visible money attracts advisors, salesmen, resentment, and relatives doing renovations. Invisible money compounds in peace. The office never adjusted to your balance because the office never met it. You got market returns on the money and a stranger's privacy on the life. Once your balance crossed a certain height, the phone learned your name. Advisors with structured products, funds with 2-layer fees, opportunities closing Friday. You thanked each caller and changed nothing. Complexity is a costume expenses wear. The plain portfolio had carried you 20 years. It did not need a makeover. Notice what the story never needed. No pension rescue, no inheritance, no lucky ticket, no rich uncle's timing. Ownership did the rescuing, one automatic Friday at a time. Waiting to be saved is the most expensive plan in America. Saving a sixth of a salary turned out to be the cheapest. On your last afternoon, the newest hire caught you at the door. How do I end up like you? You gave her the entire strategy in one breath. Split the paycheck before you feel it, buy the boring thing, ignore the weather, stay 30 years. She laughed, waiting for the real answer. You just smiled. The standard plan retires America at 65, health permitting, energy optional. You clocked out at 52. Do that subtraction slowly. 13 years, purchased in advance, at the price of a smaller television and an older car. Nobody at the dealership ever once showed you a trade like that on any window sticker. There is a dividend nobody graphs. At 52, your blood pressure reads like a younger man's, and your doctor asks what you do for stress. 30 years without panic, without debt-fueled insomnia, without the corner office ulcer. The calm plan paid you twice, once in dollars and once in heartbeats. These days, a Tuesday holds a slow breakfast, a long walk mapped by weather instead of meetings, an afternoon fixing something with your hands. You pick the grandkids up at 3, the only appointment that matters. The calendar is nearly empty, and somehow fuller than it ever was in 30 years of ink. Your children never got a single lecture about money. They got a house where the word payment rarely visited, vacations planned around joy instead of appearances, and a father home for dinner. Now grown, they split their paychecks the same quiet way. Some inheritances transfer while everyone is still alive. There is one good suit in the closet, bought decades ago for interviews that stopped mattering. It still fits, roughly. You keep it for weddings and skip the rest of what it stands for. Some men spend fortunes dressing for a status war. You won yours by never showing up to it. Even now, the balance grows most months, because the spending never caught up to the harvest. You withdraw modestly. The remainder keeps working.
And the arithmetic that carried you for 30 years simply continues, without applause. A well-built fortune behaves like a well-built house. You stop noticing it holds the roof up. Someday the neighbors will learn the number, the way these things always leak. They will retell your whole life as a mystery solved. He seems so ordinary. That verdict is the entire achievement. Ordinary on the outside, sovereign underneath. And never once a performance for a single soul on that street. So weigh the honest trade, because it sits on your table tonight. 30 ordinary years, lunches from home, cars kept a decade, splendor postponed. In exchange, the second half of a lifetime answering to no one. Some will call that dull beyond bearing. Others will recognize it as the deal of the century. Somewhere ahead of you sits your own Tuesday in June, circled or never circled. The version of you at 52 is already being decided by what happens to the next paycheck. So, honestly, which side of the sheet cake do you plan to stand on? Say it below. The comments keep secrets badly. But start anyway.